Saepe omnes. Welcome back to the AP Latin live stream on this Monday morning, or not morning, evening, but it feels like morning to me for some reason.
I swear you
I'm
just didn't wake up, did you?
I've been awake, but I'm Jenny Luongo, and normally I teach at St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Austin, Texas.
And I'm Ben Johnson, and I teach at Hamden Academy in Hamden, Maine, where it is still snowing. Holy cow. And today, we're going to cover what has kind of something topic that has made it into modern lore a little bit. It's going to be Book 6, Chapter 16 of Caesar's Gallic War. And we've entitled this The Wicker Man, which there are some interesting pictures of in textbooks and so forth of. We'll talk about what maybe we believe is how this works and whether it works or not, but we'll save that for later. Today we're going to focus on using specific terminology to identify grammatical forms and syntactical structures. We're going to assume you've already read chapters 13 through 15 of the Gallic War, possibly more. You could have done it on your own, or you could have stay tuned to all of these fantastic live streams here on YouTube, because we've covered that in the 3 previous lessons. And we're going to have a little bit of exam practice today from the last live stream, which was over chapter 15. We're going to look at comprehension of 6:16, review of Latin grammar terminology and structures of the language. I think we're going to focus on the ablative case, which is always great. Never pass up a moment to spend some time with the ablative. So we're going to talk about how the ablative affects our lives. I know you guys are on the edge of your seat, right? Hoping to find out a little bit more about us and how it relates to the ablative.
It affects us deeply and every day is what you need to know, kids.
We are affected by the ablative. How about that?
Exactly. Affecti sumus. As always, you can find resources for these lessons in the resource folder, the Google Drive folder that is at bit.ly/AP Latin YouTube. There you'll find the closed translations we're about to talk to, links for this lesson, links to previous lessons, or along with the PowerPoint as PDF in case you need to review. So what you need for today as we get started is a way to record your own thoughts, whether that's pencil and paper or some sort of Google Doc or document on your computer open. You might want to have materials from your own AP Latin class, maybe your textbook or maybe your class notebook. And then also you might want to open that closed translation, closed with a Z, that's going to be an English translation for you to fill in as we go through the passage, just to make sure that you've got the translation down.
Okay. Let's do some warm-up.
Yeah, so as Ben mentioned, I'm sure you all have been wondering all weekend about how our lives are affected by the ablative. So we're going to go through some examples right now. As we say each of these sentences, it's probably a good idea for you to think through what the sentence means, and then the words in orange are in the ablative case. So think about what ablative those might be. We talked about a lot of ablatives last week, and thank you to all of you who gave us great feedback on the Padlet that we linked to on Friday. You can find that in Friday's lesson if you want to give us comments.
We read everything, right? We read everything.
We do. We read everything, and everything that's been posted so far is completely appropriate. So you all can also read everything when you go. But at any rate, several of you mentioned that the uses of the ablative are still giving you trouble. So here we go again. So we'll start out. Sum parva nomine formaque. So what that means is I am Parva. Last week we learned that that's my Latin name. In respect to my name, nomine formaque, and in my form or shape. I'm altitudinally challenged. We covered last week.
Where did you find that picture, by the way? I kind of been meaning to ask you.
Oh, that picture was in it was a place that was open in a little town called Sant'Agnello in southern Italy, in the Bay of Naples area near Sorrento. And it's now sadly closed down, but thank goodness I got that picture because I use it for everything. So you all, you probably heard me say in respect to my name and my form. So whenever you can translate it that way, we talked about how translation can tell you what you're looking at. You're looking at an ablative of specification. We'll go on to the next sentence, which is nunc cum mea familia multa quoquo. So what is cum mea familia? How's it used? What kind of ablative is it? And what does the whole sentence mean? So nunc, now I cook multa, many things, cum mea familia, with my family. That's an ablative of accompaniment because we're doing it together. That's one of the two kinds of ablatives that uses a cum, the other one being manner. All right, we'll move on to the next sentence. So this sentence has two different types of ablative. This is a very sad picture of my husband and I. Ego, it's vero, ego et meus conjunx sumus tristissimi. So here's the sentence. Coronaviro a discipulis divisimus. So here, divisimus, we have been separated. A discipulis, from our students. That is an ablative of separation, go figure. Coronaviro, either by coronavirus, so that could be an ablative of means, or maybe because of coronavirus, that could be an ablative of cause. And sometimes ablatives do have, maybe two ways they could be interpreted. And if that's true, we're never going to ask you on an AP exam to distinguish which one it is. Both would be acceptable, or we just wouldn't ask the question. All right, speaking of sad.
It's the worst, yeah.
Yes, nostra feles, our cat, Roma Italia. Roma Italia est tristis cuniculo mortuo. So again, thinking about what the sentence means, but also what cuniculo mortuo is in terms of type of ablative. So our cat, Roma Italia est tristis, is sad. Cuniculo mortuo, with our bunny having died, with our bunny dead, after our bunny was dead. So we were looking for ablative absolute, but again, this could be an ablative of cause too. A lot of times absolute has kind of different ways it could be translated. So because our bunny is dead, Roma Italia is sad, that'd be a fine interpretation as well. All right. So last one about de mea vita, about my life. Our other cat, Lucia, is now in this picture, cum Roma Italia. So Lucia est feles magna patientia. Again, what does the whole sentence mean, but specifically focus on that ablative. So Lucy is a cat of great patience, or with great patience. When you've got two words and you can translate it with of, it's an ablative of description most likely, and that's what we're dealing with here. So we'll move on to how Ben's life is deeply affected by the ablative as well.
Okay, so here we go. Domi meae, feles meae, unguibus contendunt. So think about that ablative unguibus. We had a sentence like this earlier, I think, in our review of book 6. Domi meae, at my house, feles meae, my cats, contendunt, they fight. And how do they fight? They fight unguibus, with their claws. And so this would be showing the means through which they fight. So an ablative of means. They sometimes love each other. Sometimes they cuddle a little too much. I don't think they're fighting in that picture. It's hard. They're so fast when they fight. So, okay, so here we go. Scout, that's the little guy on the floor. This is a kitten picture. So, bella, saepe vulneratus est. Okay, so think about that. Bella, what's going on here? Okay, so scout, right? Vulneratus est. You might notice that's a perfect passive verb. And saepe kind of makes it often has been wounded by Bella. So Bella here, because she's acting as an agent, she's delivering the wounding. This is an ablative of agent. Now the difference between means and agent is you'll see an agent being used with the preposition ob or a. And means doesn't really have a preposition. And they're both often used with passive verbs here, but means is usually never a person. Animals can kind of go either way. I chose to anthropomorphize.
I think
Bella here.
anthropomorphize. Yeah.
Anthropomorphize, okay. Here we go. Bello inter feles illato. Bella virtute omnibus felibus praecedit. Because think about it, we got two different ablatives here. We've got bello inter feles illato. So that's an ablative absolute with war had been brought on between the cats. Okay, so we got Bella here. She kind of rises above all other cats. Omnibus felibus. That's it looks ablative, but it's actually a dative here. With respect to her virtue, her felinity, something like that. I mean, there's the weir part of virtus that it's kind of hard to bring onto cats, but her courage maybe something like that.
Yes, with her courage. I like that.
With her courage, okay. And then we've got this one, okay, Liberi meae, Latinis litteris utuntur. Okay, Liberi meae, Latinis litteris utuntur. So my children, and we've only got one here, utuntur, they use Latin letters because English uses Latin letters too. This is my son, Filius Meus. He's reading Academia Jedi, Jedi Academy. And you can see our little puppy there. So just to let you know, to remind you guys that the puff V deponent verbs, so potior, utor, fruor, fungor, and vescor, they all take an ablative of means after them. And so when you see like utor, and Caesar uses utor quite a bit, then you should expect that ablative. So he makes use with Latin letters. And the last one we have got, speaking of our puppy, Catulla mea est impigrior omnibus aliis canibus. Okay, so think about that. We've got impigrior. So I said before, I think she's impigerrima. I think she's very energetic. So this one's saying that my puppy is more energetic. It's a comparative right there. And so when you have a comparative and you have an ablative that follows, that's going to be an ablative of comparison. She's more energetic than all other dogs. And just to let you know, you might see Catulla and think that sounds a lot like a Roman poet named Catullus. And yeah, his name does kind of mean little puppy dog, something like that. So Roman names can be colorful. Yeah. So we've got a little Nearpod activity for you. I'll let Jenny explain this.
So we don't really have time to do this right now, but we wanted to let you know that we've created this for you. And you'll be able to find this link either on the assignment for this particular lesson, or you can play the video back and kind of pause here. But what you'll do is you'll go to join.nearpod.com, or they also have an app, and you'll put in this code DMCVO, and you can tell that it's usable until April 28th. So there's plenty of time for you to go back and practice as much as you'd like. And Ben, if you'll go to the next slide, when you get there, and you can still see the code at the bottom, join.nearpod.com. When you get there, you're going to get matching cards, basically. And so you're going to match the sentence to the use of the ablative for the activity. And when you, if you can't go on with Nearpod, then you can actually play the video back and just pause on this page and do the matching yourself. And then we can go to the next slide. When you get done, it will show you, just like this, what the matches are.
So don't look at this slide first, right? These are all the answers.
so this is the answer.
Going back to that, there we go.
But as I mentioned, there were some of you who said that you needed more practice with the ablative. So we've set this up for you. It's all ready to go. You guys use it as you want. All right, I think. Go ahead.
One little hint on the ablative. I'm currently doing that on my other YouTube channel, Latin Tutorial, going through a lot of ablative uses right now. And it's important to just think of the ablative as there are three big functions of the ablative. There's the ablative that originally was the locative case, so that shows location, whether with geographic space or time. That'd be like the ablative of time or the ablative of location. There's the original ablative, which is separation. And there's a whole lot of things that come from separation. There's the from translation, there's like ablative of source, cause comes from that. And then there's also, so those are two of the three big uses of the ablative. And then the third big function of the ablative is the instrument use. That's like where the means comes from. So if you can kind of like boil it down into those three and then kind of pick apart the more like smaller versions of that, then you can start to understand why the ablative is the way that it is. So, okay, so we had a learning opportunity. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
I was going to say learning opportunity time, but I was going to put in a plug
Oh.
for Latin tutorial because I know, it's your YouTube channel, but it's so helpful, students. So if you need more grammar help, that's where I send my students. So I'll send you all there too, since you're now my students as well.
Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay, so here we go. So this is your homework or your learning opportunity last night over the weekend. We love assigning homework over the weekend because that's the best way to spend your Saturday night is doing Latin. So this was twofold. Wanted you to write a literal translation of the above sentences and then answer the two questions below. The two questions are talking about what type of ablative are genere copiisque. Think about the English word that we would use to translate them. And then what words from this passage tell you that the equites are a powerful group in ancient Gallia? So you guys ready? You have your learning opportunity answers in front of you. Okay, so here we go. Here's the big reveal. Okay, the literal translation, and it's a literal translation. Obviously, there are a lot of different possible ways that that you can translate this literally. And even if this were going to be a regular, typical AP year, and there are translations, even scoring that translation is, there's a lot of gray areas and stuff. So just because this is down here doesn't mean this is the translation. Like there is no capital T, the translation. So here we go. So this is what we have. All of them are involved in war. That's omnes in bello versantur. And this is a little kind of tricky with that ut there, as much as each of them, the eorum quisque, is very abundant amplissimus with respect to their family and wealth, the genera copiisque. So there's your ita. They have, habet, very many vassals and clients, plurimos ambactos clientesque, around them, circum se. They know, noverunt, and we talked last time about how you can translate this in the present tense, even though it looks like even though it is a perfect tense verb. They know this one influence, hunc unam gratiam, and power, potentiamque. So that's your literal translation. Since we translated genera copiisque in line 1 as as with respect to, ablative of respect, and I just realized that we should be calling it an ablative of specification. That it is what it is, right? They both
Hopefully
have
these kids got it now, because we go back and forth all the time. Respect and specification.
Yes, and we'll still keep going back and forth because I call it an ablative of respect, and it's hard, when you've been ingrained since infancy in calling it an ablative of respect. What words from this passage tell you that the equites are a powerful group in ancient Gallia? And that's your plurimos ambactos clientesque habet. They have very many vassals and clients. The size really does kind of have a huge impact on their power. They have the power of people behind them. You might also like draw attention to the potentiam in the third line there too. They know this power. So okay, are we good?
We're good. We're good. Okay. So we're going to get into today's lesson, which is a challenging one. It's got some really disturbing material, and so we wanted to be upfront about that. Certainly, if you need to step away for a minute because thinking about it is hard, we totally understand. Take care of yourself. But we also want to let you know that we're talking about it before, and we're a little skeptical about whether this was true or not, or whether Caesar just made it up. And Ben, I don't know if you want to say more about that before we go into this first passage, or we can talk about it during the passage.
Yeah, there are a couple. Yeah, we'll talk about it during the passage too. But there are a couple of instances here where when you sit down and you think about it, and you think about like what this like the physics behind it, just the actual like the how you would go about doing this, and then the impact that something like this would have in a society, where you have several thousand people all in a small area, and they know each other and so forth. Like it doesn't seem to me to be a very realistic scenario. And we know that there are instances in Caesar where he says things that are entirely made up. Like he describes later on in this book when he's talking about Germany and the customs and the animals across the Rhine in Germania. He describes animals that don't exist because Caesar has no idea. What he's doing is he's taking stories from people and he's relating them as fact. And book 6 must have been a really slow year for a lot of the things going on, because he decides to spend half of his book talking about customs of the Gauls and of the Germans. And so he's just relaying these stories. And I mean, Caesar probably didn't go in and see these things. He's describing the stuff that people say, tall tales in some ways. And so it's perfectly fine to be skeptical about some of these things. I myself am, and we'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah. So we're going to go through the practice. We saw that some of you commented that we do go through things fast. We're going to go through this fast, partly because we have a Kahoot plan for you probably to have time
Kahoot.
for. I know.
We figured it out, didn't we?
We
Okay.
think we figured it out. So we're going to try it today at the end of this, but let's go ahead and go into this. So first, we're going to do our normal roganda. Number 1. To what does Caesar claim the entire Gallic nation, so natio omnis Gallorum, is devoted? Est dedita. So that gives you an idea of where in the passage to look for the answer to that one. Number 2, what are the 2 kinds of people here who Caesar says take action based ob eam causam, for this reason, based on their devotion? And so a hint for where to look here is the qui and the quique, those people who and those people who. And then number 3, what are the 2 options for what these 2 kinds of people do? And we've got an out to guide us there. So they either out do one thing, or out they do another thing. So we'll give some awkward wait time.
Okay.
All right. Dedita est, they are devoted religionibus, to their religious beliefs, or maybe to their religious superstitions, because we've talked about the fact that Caesar's not being complimentary about Gallic society here. He is, trying to give reasons why they need to be conquered, in his opinion, right? So number 2, what kinds of people does Caesar take action? So it's qui, those who sunt ad fecti, have been affected gravioribus morbis, by rather serious or more serious illnesses. Quique, or those who are versantur, engaged. We've worked on that word a lot last week, if you need to go back and look at some videos. In proeliis, in battles, periculisque, and dangers. And then what are the 2 options for what they do? Out, either immolant, and this is the part that gets disturbing and crazy. Immolant, they sacrifice homines, men, pro victimis, as sacrificial victims. Out, or vovent, they vow that say they immolaturos, will sacrifice them. That's one of those indirect statements, verb of the head. And we're missing the essay. It's another example of Roman ellipsis. If that last part sounds disturbing to you, it sounded disturbing to the Romans, and that's probably why Caesar brought it up.
The idea of promising sacrifices, it's common in the ancient world. We're not necessarily talking about like promising human sacrifice, but if you're engaged in a battle, for instance, you don't have time to stop the battle, sacrifice an animal to a god, and then get the benefit from that. So often it's common that you would say, hey, if I get out of this, I will sacrifice 12 somethings to you when I get home. And so that whole, the idea of vovent omolaturos is it's common, and the Romans would have understood that too. Okay, so talking about these sacrifices here in this, I think it's one sentence here. We have for roganda. So what case are administris druidibus in line 1 and why? Why do they believe it's true that if the life of a man should not be returned for the life of another man? 3, how is the infinitive posse in line 2 used here? And then 4, what type of infinitive is placari here? Okay, so let's go on. So we have the administris druidibus. So they use utuntur. They use druids as their managers, their attendants ad ea sacrificia, at these sacrifices. And we talked about this early on in this live stream, where the verb utor is it's one of those puff v deponent verbs that take an ablative of means as it's what we would consider to be its object. So they believe that it's true that, or they don't think that the gods would be pleased unless the Gauls themselves are exchanging one life, one human life in exchange for another life. So this is why someone who's maybe gravely ill or who is in a dangerous battle or something like that, like there has to be a human life is owed to the gods. And so if they're going to be saved, then someone else has to suffer for that. Posse here is the main verb in an indirect statement that's introduced by arbitrantur, which is a head verb that we're going to see a couple more times. So they think that it is not possible. And then placari in line 2 here, actually, is a complementary infinitive required after posse, and it's in a present passive form. That's why it ends ari. So it's not possible for the divinity, the divine will of the immortal gods to be pleased, and that's how we would translate that. And so one little bit of really interesting grammar here. And so they have instituted as habent instituta, which sounds normal and natural to us in English. But when you think about it, in Latin, it's habent instituta, that they have habent instituta, instituted. So that should just be a regular perfect tense verb. But there is this strange use of using the verb habeo with a perfect passive participle that gives us the past tense. And this is really where a lot of the modern languages, modern Romance languages, have taken their past tense, what we would consider their perfect tense from this use here. But it's different than what we would normally expect. We would expect instituerunt or something like that. So moving on.
All right, so alii, some of them habent have simulacra images, Caesar tells us. So we want you first to look at these words, imani, magnitudine. What's the best translation for them? And then what kind of ablative are they? You'll notice in the next section that we've defined this word womenibus for you, which means from Wicker. So that's where you're going to look for this. What does Caesar claim they fill complement these wicker men with?
What's wicker?
Oh, it's like a bendable branch. So sometimes you see furniture made out of these bendable branches that have been woven together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
All right. And so number 3, what kind of ablatives are quibus quibus sucensis in the next section and flamma. Those are 2 different types of ablatives, not the same. So we'll give you some awkward pause time. All right, and I think we'll go ahead to the answers. So the best translation for imani magnitudine, it's one of those description or ablative of description. So images of immense size or with immense size. And then it says complement. They fill these with vivis hominibus, with living men. Again, disturbing, but we really think it is too outlandish to be more than a story that Caesar's using to defame the Gauls.
Yeah, I think that not to interrupt, but there is some reports of not these huge statues, but maybe there's a not to get too deep into this, statues that are 30 feet tall filled with humans just probably doesn't make sense. There might be reasons why this is maybe like things that it maybe are true that's similar to this, but this is just like, how do you get them in? Like,
yeah. Like there's maybe a grain of truth, but it's hard for us to know really. And we've talked about how we're looking through the eyes of Caesar, not really through Gallic eyes here. So finally, quibus sucensis, with these set on fire. Homines, men, circum venti, surrounded flamma, by flames, or sorry, by flame, singular would be a better literal translation. Exanimantur, they're killed or they die. So quibus sucensis is one of those ablative absolutes we've been talking about, and surrounded by flame is an ablative of means.
Okay. So I think this is the last section we're going to cover. So we have 3 reasons that Caesar mentions that people have been arrested. These people that make up, according to Caesar, the punishment. And what kind of an adjective is gratiora in line 2? Esse to arbitrantur, what kind of grammatical structure is this? So that, I mean, I clued you in that we're going to see this word arbitrantur a little bit. And then finally, what does Caesar say when they don't have a supply, a copia of this type of criminal? So again, this passage to me is exceptionally disturbing, and also doesn't make sense from how a society would function. But let's think about these questions here and then get to that. Okay, so the 3 reasons that Caesar mentions that people have been arrested, sint comprehensa, are in furto, in theft, in robbery, in latrocinio, so like maybe a band of brigands going around the countryside, marauding, killing people, taking things, or even just the general catch-all, aliqua noxia, some other crime. So these are the people that maybe take up this punishment. Gratiora, so they think that punishment of these people is more pleasing or agreeable, or rather pleasing, dis immortalibus, to the immortal gods. And so when you think of it that way, they think that these punishments are more pleasing. The arbitrantur is our head verb that introduces an indirect statement, and that is why esse is an infinitive here. And what does Caesar say they do when they don't have a supply of this type of criminal? Well, he says that they resort to filling the wicker man. They resort to the punishment ad supplicia of innocent people, innocentium, which doesn't seem like it would create a good bond between people in their society. So this is another thing that I'm pretty skeptical about, and sounds like Caesar is maybe demonizing these people by saying that they don't care if you haven't committed a crime. Like they maybe going into this whole, like they're wholeheartedly devoted to their religionibus, their religious practices, so much so that they'd even like take this thing that is punishment and, well, we have to do it, so sorry, but that would just tear apart the bonds of their local town and stuff like that. So okay, phew.
All right.
Got through that. That's it's a hard section to cover because it's so horrible, and it makes me feel like not great respect for Caesar for doing things and saying these things and reporting these things. So
agreed. All right. So tempus est, discipuli.
Ludamus Cahoot.
Yes. So we are going to go ahead and share this Kahoot game with you. So today for Kahoot, we're really going to be focusing on grammatical structures, kind of like we've been mentioning before. So we're going to start with some ablatives because it seems like that's kind of what we've been focusing on. So it seems good for us to check in on that. But also, we want to check some other kinds of structures. So the code for this game is tres, nihil, noem, quatuor, noem, octo. And so when we talk about grammatical structures at the end of the Kahoot, like I said, we're going to start with some ablatives. But when we start with grammatical structures at the end of the Kahoot, we're really going to be asking you to think carefully about the kinds of things that we are seeing in those sentences and that sort of thing. So in just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and start the Kahoot. The game pin should still appear. And just keep in mind that we're on a little bit of a delay for this broadcast. And so when you get to see the question, you're going to have less time than you expect. So for these ablative questions, we're expecting you to have about 15 seconds. So think carefully, think carefully. All right. So here we go. And again, if you didn't get in, don't fear, we're going to put the game code up. So we're going to look at the sentence, ad ea sacrificia druidibus utuntur. So is it, druidibus in particular, an ablative with special deponent verbs, an ablative of description, comparison, or manner?
I remember talking about this one, right?
Yeah, we've kind of talked about this verb utuntur a lot. So hopefully people are keying into that as they get the question.
It reminds me of my down winter coat. It's rather puffy.
Yeah. All right. So when you see the utuntur, that is a good clue that we're looking at with special deponent verbs. So good job, everybody who got that one.
Soaring pelican. Okay, nice job.
Yes, exactly. So the next question we're going to look at is alii imani magnitudine simulacra habent. So we talked about this one. We actually asked you about this one during the lesson itself. So some have images. Imani magnitudine. Is that time when, means, description, or accompaniment? Just a reminder on this one that it's important that it has two words. All right, excellent. Lots more people got in on that one. Good job. This is description. So we've got two words and we can translate it of immense size. So we'll move on to the next one. Quibus simulacris, implied here, sucensis.
2 words, 3 words?
Yeah, 2, 3 words. So is it agent? Is it means? Is it accompaniment? Is it an ablative absolute? Oh, sorry, is it manner? I couldn't see. I was blocking it. Is it agent? Is it manner? Is it accompaniment? Or is it an ablative absolute? One big clue with this one is that we didn't have to put the rest of the sentence up. All right. Oh, sorry. A lot of people got that. It was an ablative absolute. Sorry about that. I clicked it too fast. But yeah, quibus sucensis is an ablative absolute.
Groovy octopus up 55 places.
So, circum venti flamma ex animantur homines, another one we talked about. So is it description, means, specification, or comparison? And so this one, men surrounded.
How are they surrounded?
Yes, exactly. All right, if you haven't picked one yet, go ahead and pick one. I'm gonna go ahead and end that one just because we're getting short on time. So yeah, most people got that right. That's an ablative of means. They were surrounded by flame. All right, and we'll move on to, now we're gonna do some sentences. So looking at this sentence, non posse deorum immortalium numen placari arbitrantur. So we want to know, are we looking at an ablative absolute, an indirect statement, a substantive clause of result, or a purpose clause. It definitely, as you look at this type of structure, it's important to think about whether you've got an ablative for the ablative absolute. For some of them, it's important to think about whether or not we have ut, and then that arbitrantor should be a good clue.
We call that, that's a head verb, right?
Exactly. I'm going to cut it off pretty quickly now. Sorry if you didn't get in. Oh, good. Most people got that it was an indirect statement because of the arbitrantor. They think that the spirit of the immortal gods is not able to be pleased. Very well done, people.
Aquatic dingo. Okay, first place.
Continues, exactly. Okay. So here again, we're asking whether we've got a indirect statement, ablative absolute, substantive clause of result, or purpose clause. And some of these we didn't get a chance to talk about today, but we have talked about them in previous lessons. So if you're needing help, then you might look back at some of our previous lessons. But it was customary to happen that they themselves brought injuries. All right, I'm going to give a few more seconds and then we're going to need to move on. All right, sorry if you didn't get in. Oh, look at that. People are getting that, the fact that if you see something like acquirere and uti, which is like ut here, it's a substantive clause of result. Really well done. I'm impressed. I think that one is a challenging one. Yeah. Okay, aditum sermonemque defugiunt, ne quid ex contagione incommodi accipiunt.
I don't see an ut here, so.
So we don't have an ut. It does make you pause, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So is it an ablative absolute, an indirect statement, a purpose clause, or a substantive clause of result? So they flee their approach in conversation.
Oh, but there's
lest,
an A. Oh,
I love that word. Lest they receive any inconvenience from contact. All right, a few more seconds and I'm going to cut you guys off.
This is a after si nisi nomine sentence, isn't it?
It is. It is. Okay, good.
Nice job,
the
guys.
majority of people got it. Good. So we're looking at a purpose clause. Ne introduces a negative purpose clause. All right, and a couple more.
Aquatic dingoes, quite the
exactly.
The pro.
Exactly. So hoc maxime ad virtutem excitari putant. Again, ablative absolute, indirect statement, purpose clause, or substantive clause of result. So it really helps to pay attention to this particular verb putant. They think that they are excited to manliness most greatly by this.
I think that originates in the head, doesn't it? Right?
Exactly. A few more sentences. I'm sorry, sentences. That's true. I am going to give one more sentence, but seconds. And we're going to have to stop it. Oh, good. Most people got that puto is introducing an indirect statement. And we will do our last one. Constituerunt sementes quam maximas facere, ut in itenere copia frumenti supeteret. So again, we're asking purpose, ablative absolute, substantive clause of result, or indirect statement.
I do see the ut. Okay.
Super helpful to see that ut. We're going to have people make a quick decision here because we're running out of time today. So they decided to make plantings as great as possible so that a supply of grain would be on their journey. And that is a purpose clause. All right, well done. I think, unfortunately, no time for a long podium.
Proud sable.
But I guess we'll do it anyway.
Agent B,
I mean,
and then
if we go over a little, it'll be worth it for aquatic dingo to have their moment in the sun.
We're going to find out aquatic dingo is a Latin teacher or something like that.
Probably. I think somebody will probably let us know. Okay, so we'll...
Okay, are we back? Okay.
Exactly, we're back.
Okay, so we have debrief and summary. just as always, we like to give you guys a question to think about. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but why did the Romans find the Gauls in general and Druids in particular so threatening? We have here a passage from Livy, who wrote about the sack of Rome in 390 BCE. And you can think about that. You can think about Brennus, who was the Gallic chieftain. And possibly the Caesar even talks about a military defeats that the Romans suffer in the late 2nd century BC. But we'll have more time, hopefully, in future lessons to talk more about the reason why Caesar seems to be so against the Gauls as a people. Then we have our homework, our learning opportunity. So this is going to be in the AP resource folder. The bit.ly link we'll show you at the end. Here we've talked about forms and ablatives. And so we want you to identify these ablatives from the section from book 1, chapter 2, and translate each of them. So there are 8 of them. Go to the folder, grab your homework, work on it, see how well you've mastered these ablatives. Whoops.
These kids are going to be so good at ablatives, Ben.
I hope so.
All right. So again, our resource folder, bit.ly/AP Latin YouTube, exam practice, closed translation, links for the lesson, all
Everything
available
is there. Yep.
Everything there. And then also don't forget the College Board really wants to know how they can help you take the AP exam this year. So if you or someone you know needs mobile tools or connectivity, please go to this website, cb.org/tech, and fill out the form there. Let us know how we can help you. All right. Thanks, you guys, as always, for watching, for your participation. Valete omnes.
Tell all your friends. Bye, guys. Valete.